Hi. My name's Puck, and I'm going to talk to you about this. What you're seeing is a new kind of music notation. It's similar to and yet very different from the Western staff notation, and I firmly believe better than it. A quick warning to all musicians listening in. This could potentially change the way that you go about making music. To all music learners, I'm very much convinced that reading and writing with the system is a better way to learn music, no matter how musical you are. Of course, one simple video isn't going to be enough, especially because I think that music is not a competition, but something that you have to do with other people, instead of practicing alone in your room. Music is really a social affair, and that's also something that this new notation is very much about. But there's going to be plentiful in this video, a free link to the content of my music notebook at the end of it, as well as more videos to come. But for now, here's 5 reasons to get you started. Number 1. Writing. Writing in the new notation is easy. You don't need ruled music sheets or a program, just any piece of paper. A napkin or the backside of your divorce papers. Anything you can get your hands on. You draw a line on it and you're good to go and to compose. The major scale, whatever key you choose to play in, is always going to look like this. The minor scale, like this. But let's go for something a little more real. This melody, for instance, it could sound like this. Or like this. Or like this. Whatever key you feel like playing in. Let's take the time and try out another melody in minor. All 12 keys are at the tips of your fingers, and if you expect the new notation to fall apart when encountering more complicated song structures, no, it won't. You can write simple songs with it, complex stuff, fugues, jazz songs, lead sheets for pop music, orchestra scores, you name it. The range is, without using any octave signs, at least 3 octaves, while the typical vocal range for both female and male singers is only 2 octaves. And the double bass clocks in at 3 octaves. When using the new notation, it's very important to no longer think of ledger lines, but instead in terms of function. What you're writing down is not some coordinate and a graph anymore, which is what the old notation basically was, but instead a set of signs with a definite meaning that you will know at first glance and without the need for any more context. Just like it's the case with the words of the very language you speak. Any major triad, here, for example, in root position, is always going to look like this, no matter what instrument for or what key the piece was written in. Whereas in the old notation, that same major triad has to be written completely differently in any of the 12 keys, plus taking into account different clefs, octaving and transposing, which does little to facilitate switching between or arranging 4 different instruments. It's like having dozens of spellings for one simple word. Music is really neither hard nor complicated. It's just that our old notation makes it look that way. Also, the new notation is simply way quicker. If you don't have to worry about clefs, write a couple of key signatures at the beginning of each line, think of whether you're writing for transposing instruments and so on, you'll always be faster. Although, I'm going to be honest, writing down pieces with more than one independent voice in one system is definitely possible, but not much more readable than in the old notation. So when I'm writing 4-part fugues for the piano, I'm actually using 4 lines, which has the nice side effect of making it instantly playable for any combination of a quartet, for instance. And if you see the first note of any piece, this note could be anywhere on your instrument, and all the following notes relative to that first note. The notation doesn't tell you where the first note is, and doesn't want to tell you, because that's up to you to decide. If you're feeling a little overwhelmed by this, I can promise you that sight reading in the notation gets easy and intuitive after a very little while, if you do have some faith in your ears guiding your hands. You're not going to be told every last detail as to what key to press or what string to pull, so if you're a beginner, you will have to listen closely to what sounds your instrument is making instead of relying too much on what's written on the page, thereby constantly training your ears and not just your hands. And even the best musicians play wrong notes from time to time. But they don't get discouraged by it, they learn from it and then play on. Number 2. Transposing. I often find it a bit weird that most musicians learn a piece for one specific instrument and in one specific key only. Of course, there's exceptions and exceptional musicians, but I'm talking about the vast majority of musicians here. This gets much easier with the new notation. String instruments are going to have a field day with this. You simply shift your position on the neck and play in another key. Players of wind instruments will have to practice a little in order to get the hang of it, but it will quickly be a piece of cake, trust me. No matter what instrument you're playing, your technique is going to improve greatly if your practice does not consist of doing the same thing over and over again, but instead of making small decisions of your own and subtle changes each time you play the piece. What's more, memorizing songs will be much easier, and you'll be able to retain them for longer, simply because you'll inadvertently learn the underlying harmonic structure of the songs you're playing and really get to the bottom of it. And our minds like to get to the bottom of it. To the professional musicians listening in, you have spent thousands of hours practicing with the old system. Think of the freedom you could have if only you used a fraction of that time and combined your knowledge with the new system. Think of how much freedom this would mean for your students. Number 3. One for all. In terms of practical use, the old notation is a mess. Let's take a look at the string instruments of the orchestra: violin, viola, cello, and double bass. They use 4 different clefs among themselves, and, to make it even worse, ones that are hardly mutually understandable. Violinists can read the violin clef and some of what the cellists are playing. No one except the viola players is familiar with the alto clef. Cellists use 3 different keys alone. And the double bass players only read their very own lines as well as those of the cello written in the bass clef. If we throw transposing instruments such as horns, clarinets, or saxophones into the mix, things get even weirder. Let's take a simple melody and have it played by a couple of instruments. We'll be playing in different octaves, yes, but it's still the same notes. And I'm pretty sure a violinist doesn't stand on to try and play as low as a bass player, and the other way around. And if a composer wants to specify what range or what key an instrument should play in, that's one quick note away. I personally prefer to leave that up to the musicians, though. It makes it much more interesting that way. But let's listen to the melody. That's the same notes 4 times. Here's what it's supposed to look like in the old notation. But why not write it like this, with the same melody for each instrument, because it actually was the same melody. So I know transposing instruments existed for a reason. There's tradition and preserving fingering patterns when switching between instruments. But funnily, only the transposing instruments themselves profit from that tradition. And what's more, someone who only owns 1 clarinet or 1 saxophone, which I think is the case for most non-professional musicians, is not helped by transposing at all, because they simply don't know that they're doing it. If not, they play with other people who play non-transposing instruments, in which case it's not of any help at all and just a hindrance. But if you are a professional musician who owns several wind instruments, shouldn't you have the expertise to no longer need the old notation? Let's take the prelude of the wonderful 6th cello suite by Bach. The new notation preserves every note of the original, and yet makes it possible for it to be played by any instrument and in any key your instrument's range allows for. Additions set in the old notation burden the musician with 2, sometimes 3 different clefs, and make it quite unlikely for anyone other than a cellist who learned to read those clefs to play it, let alone play it in another key. And usually we don't even play Bach in the key he had in mind, as the concert pitch has been raised significantly since then. In fact, the 6th cello suite was not even written for today's cello, because the introduction calls for a 5-string instrument, which is confusing, for the most part concerned with stuffy details the audience doesn't know about, and even worse, will not be able to hear during a concert. So why not do away with all of this? Think of how great it would be if we had neither clefs nor transposing instruments and instead could focus on the essence of music, to make it sound as good and diverse as possible. There would almost never be a need for arranging music that has been written already, because every line can be played by any instrument. Of course, there's mechanical limitations to any individual instrument. A single-string instrument will have a hard time playing multiple voices, wind instruments will have to break up chords into arpeggios, a piano cannot really play a glissando, and so on. But the majority of notes isn't exclusive to any one instrument and can easily be played by any other. So the repertoire that we gain by taking away that limitation on music would be almost endless. And think of the effect that it could have for unifying musicians of all genres, no matter where they are from. Let's take Mozart's Rondo alla Turca, originally written for keyboard. What would happen if we could expect not just one instrument, but any instrument to play your favorite pieces? Number 4, reading. When I'm looking at music written in the old notation, I'm not hearing music in my mind, I'm just seeing dots and lines. When I'm looking at the new notation, because everything that sounds the same actually looks the same always, I do hear it before my mind's ear, which could be a huge step for musicians. A whole new way to surround yourself with music and to get accustomed to new material, whether you're a beginner or a professional. The score tells you instantly what's going on harmonically, so playing variations, changing stuff up, or just jamming will be so much easier. Speaking of jamming, what I find particularly interesting is using the notation for chords. With just a few lines, you can write down the chord structure of entire pop songs, and because you're not using letters, you're not even restricting yourself and others to playing in just one key. Let's take the most common progression in jazz, the 2-5-1. When using letters, you'd have to write it down like this, also confining everyone to one chosen key. Why not do it like this, leaving it up to the musicians to decide what key they want to play in? I know I'm playing 6th and 7th chords, but I'm not writing them down, and I'm going to give good reasons in a later video why I personally choose not to write them down, as well as know tempo indications and dynamics. You, however, can modify and switch up the systems whatever way you see fit. No one is keeping you from still using the old signs. It's all about how to play good music, and the fastest way to get you to playing it. The same goes for learning about the notation. You can certainly learn it by having someone play or sing it for you while you're both looking at it. And wouldn't it be really nice if you could read music like you're reading the newspaper? Number 5, what music could be. I'd like to think that music isn't about the people playing it all that much as it is about the people enjoying it. Often that's the audience, hopefully, and sometimes the musicians as well. I do not think, however, that the old notation really helps us enjoy the music that we are playing. At best, it doesn't take away from it, but that's all. I think that both musicians and audience deserve better. We are meant to play with ideas, toy around with patterns, change up things from time to time. That's how we learn language. Not by repeating the same sentences over and over again, but by changing them up, by formulating our own, by improvising. As of now, the old music notation is a means to conserve music and hold it firmly in place, not really allowing for much freedom. I think that things should be different. I think that music notation should be a tool to connect with other people, to help musicians connect with other musicians, to help us play more intriguing, diverse, and colorful music. Rewriting a music catalog isn't going to be all that difficult with computers and everything being available in MIDI format already. What's more important is to convince people how much more powerful music actually is than we allow it to be. Imagine if going to a concert, not just a classical one, could actually surprise you. Imagine if you could go outside and play with any musician you meet. Imagine if you could speak music. I know, sometimes it can be hard to let go of something that was once familiar. If you're not a musician but find this concept interesting, show it to a musician that you know and ask them to try it out with an open mind and a little patience. If you are a musician, there's no need to rush this. Here's a link that holds 100 pages of free sheet music written in the new notation, including a short manual if I've left any questions open, some of my favorite and not too difficult pieces by Mozart, Bach and Schumann, fugues you can play as a duet, some jazz standards, as well as actually quite a lot of pop music. Make it a point to play the pieces in different keys, no matter what instrument you play. Don't think too much before playing the first note. Just take the step and see where it leads you. And if it has been a while since you last picked up your instrument, now's the time. Play with other people. Music only sounds half as good when you're alone. And if you make a mistake and play a wrong note, you learn from it and try again. The new notation will change music, make it better, if you wanted to. But why wouldn't you? You're a musician, after all.